Don't forget to subscribe to Basement Tales. Just go on Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts and hit that subscribe button. We release a podcast every Thursday. That way you'll be sure not to miss an episode. Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jackman, Charlie Einsman, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancey. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it. This was one of the things I wanted to ask is how we get Carter back. If he's around, if he exists, if he's in another universe, I'm not sure.
Carter is ready to come back.
Oh yeah, Carter's ready.
Yeah. He keeps telling me we need to get back on the show. We need to talk about this on the show. So Carter is ready. Now, what you're going to get from Carter, I have no idea.
Well, that's
all right.
sure.
So wait a minute, Ed. Where are you?
I'm in my basement, literally. I feel like I'm in my mom's basement.
Are you in Virginia or in Maine?
No, I'm back in Virginia. They've ripped my office apart. I've got a giant hole on my third floor where my office is.
Has Carter been to your house too?
No, no, but I'm sure that's coming.
What's going on, Ed? Oh wow, Ed's floating.
It's the camera's looking up at me. I feel godlike from this angle. I like it.
You look like you were breakdancing or something for a minute.
That's probably was. I probably was. But yeah, so I hear Wimpy Sam is going to check out because he's all drugged up today.
I'm not going to be able to be fully engaged here.
We
doing everything I can just to get through the mail.
We want to hear your psychedelic thoughts, Sam.
They're slowed down a little bit, the thoughts.
Okay. I'm not sure he would be able to tell any different. If this makes it on the show, our poor Sam had his back exploded, I believe is what happened. So.
Yeah, it's doing way better now. I went and got a shot.
Appropriate. Exploding is right. Boom.
It feels way better, like way better.
Yeah, the problem is you feel too good, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
All right.
If I get off now, will it disconnect everybody?
Oh, it's a good question. Maybe just leave.
You can end, but you don't end for all. You can exit.
So I can just press leave.
Yes, but don't end it.
All right.
We'll text you if that causes a problem.
Okay, I'll be right here. Thanks.
Well, there he goes.
We're still here.
He's gone.
Okay.
Well, most of us
now we can talk about him.
Back. Exactly. Most of us made it back alive from vacation, so now it's time to. We can tell stories about Sam. He won't even know about it until it gets on the air.
I'm still not back. I'm sitting in a hotel room.
Yeah. Why are you not home? Are you on vacation?
Well, not quite. We vacationed for a few days. Well, last week and then this week, a few days with the girls. And now we're dropping the kid off at the University of Florida. So I'm in Gainesville, beautiful Gainesville, Florida.
Oh, Gainesville, Florida. I thought you meant Gainesville, Virginia.
No.
That shows you how clue. My God, why talk to us?
So she's a junior. All right. Junior now, right?
She's a junior.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Getting ready to drop the other one off next year. One more year.
There's nobody wearing a mask down there in Florida?
No one's wearing a mask. And they look at us strangely when we walk in. We were in South Carolina for 4 days too. We were in Charleston for a few days. And then we were in, what's the other place? Hilton Head for a few days. And when we see other people wearing masks, we want to high five them.
Meanwhile, in Ithaca, New York, that's where I dropped my daughter off for college.
everybody was wearing a mask on campus, off campus, outside. It was amazing. It was more than even by us down here in the DC, Virginia area.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll see. They may live through it. And
Yeah.
Charlie, you're back from your standard annual, right?
Well, yeah, that was at the beginning of the month.
Oh,
And so I guess
that's right. You were early.
I've been back two whole weeks. Yeah.
Just waiting.
Yeah.
So what's happened to the market since you've been gone?
Oh no, this market is at a standstill. We don't know what's going on. Inventory stacking up. I don't know if it's seasonal or I don't know what it is, because in the foreclosure moratorium, even though it's technically ended, the banks haven't started foreclosing yet. And so there's a backlog of foreclosures getting ready to come. And even in September, there's not too many coming. And so we think the October, November, December timeline for increased foreclosures are going to happen. But this market is absolutely stalled because we have inventory all throughout DMV and we can't move it. And different kinds of inventory like condos, single family houses. We don't have any townhouses on the market. And this is stuff that we own. Mm-hmm. And it is not moving. It is sitting there. And so, like I said, usually the month of August is a bad month to sell houses anyway, because everybody is supposedly on vacation. And I think this year that's probably the case because last year, nobody took vacations because of COVID. So right. I think everybody's making up for it. Not only their normal 1 week vacations, but like you guys, people are taking 2 week, 3 week vacations just to make up for last year. So I think right now it's very seasonal, the slowdown, but stay tuned. But we have nothing selling right now.
Well, we've been at the beach. I tell you, they're all at the beach. That's where they are. So yeah, I think that's the case.
Yeah,
our place was definitely more crowded, but you know, there was the turn down in retail sales went down a little bit, and so nobody, you know, and then the whole Delta thing. I think people are holding their breath to the fall to see if the Delta, you know, virus picks up steam. But yeah, and I guess it's interesting about the inventory because people are probably still listing their homes, having heard about all the good sale prices, and just a certain number of people have to list their home. Do you think there's more listings than usual coming on, or it's just
normal? For
sure,
because a lot of people that are maybe thinking of selling in the spring, they're really antsy, and a lot of folks have come to us wanting to sell their house right now because they want to collect while the collecting is good. So there's definitely a lot more retail listings coming on the market, and some of those houses would have come in spring 2022 and they're actually hitting the market right now. And so I think that has an impact as well. But you know, from a consumer standpoint, you know, interest rates are still really, really low. And that leads me into actually a pretty good story. If you guys want me to tell it, you guys are gonna laugh your heads off.
Gotta hear it.
So as you guys know, have you guys recently refinanced your houses? Or your house?
Yeah.
Last year.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I haven't. So I still have a 4 3/8.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe it's 4 5/8 loan with Bank of America that honestly, I never tried to refinance. I did try recently. I had a Ed Grass, Ken Concannon experience.
Oh, no.
And so I tried to refinance my house with Amerisave about 2 months ago, but it was such a fiasco that I absolutely lost my mind because every time they wanted a piece of paper, they wanted more and more stuff. And so even though my house appraised for so much money and the amount of money that I wanted was so low, it was like a 45% loan to value. And my credit score is around, I don't know, 780, 790. And they gave me such a runaround to refinance my house that I just threw up my hands and said, F you, F you, F you, which Charlie, don't bleep it out because I didn't say the full words. So I literally gave up refinancing my house. So because I gave up refinancing my house and I have this, 30-year fixed rate at 4.625, whatever the hell it is, 4 5/8, I'm just to the point where instead of going through the nonsense to refinance it, I'm just going to go ahead and pay it off eventually, right? And so what happens to me all the time is that in the mail, I get all of these loan offers. And so what they do is they send you these checks, right? So,
Right.
it's
I've seen
between
that.
$450 and $580,000. They'll send you this check, right? And so I have this running joke that, you know what, one of these days I'm going to go ahead and endorse the back of that check and I'm going to try and deposit it with the bank, right? So I've been getting absolutely inundated with these requests from these mortgage companies trying to solicit me to refinance my house, like Amerisave, Loan Depot, Rocket Mortgage, you name it. I get 2 or 3 a week. And so here's where the joke comes in. It's not really a joke. So I get these solicitations and I throw them away because, there's just solicitations. Well, just recently, Sam and myself, we retired our pension fund. So we had a pension fund for a few years and we canceled it. And so we have been waiting on to receive our pension fund checks so that we can deposit them into what's called our solo Ks or our 401ks or IRAs, whatever you want to call it. In my case, it's a solo K. So I'm going through the mail the other day and I'm getting all these solicitations from these loan companies. And so I'm just joking about it, saying, yeah, I'm just going to endorse it and deposit in the bank. Well, I opened up this one check, which I thought was a solicitation. And I was about ready to throw it away into the trash, not thinking about what it might be. So I'm getting ready to rip it up. And then I started analyzing it and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This looks like a real check.
Oh no.
This is like a real check. It's got an ABA number on it. It's got an account number on it, and it's got my name on it, and it's for maybe close to the amount of what the solicitations were for me to refinance my house. So I'm about ready to tear this baby up and throw it away because I'm thinking it's a solicitation. And so I look at it close, and it was an actual check.
Oh wow. I
was like, oh shit. I'm so glad I didn't throw this away.
That'd be hard to get them to reissue it. That's for sure.
Probably.
Oh, no. So it gets even better. Not only will it get harder for them to reissue it, but they made a typo on who the payee of the check is supposed to be made out to. So remember,
it's not made out to you.
Well, that's the thing. No, the payee is made sort of out to me. But remember, though, it's made out to FBO, for beneficiary of, because I can't technically pass this money through any of my personal accounts because it's going from a pension fund into, in my case, it's a solo K.
Right.
So the name of the company where it was going to was a UBS, Financial Services, for beneficiary of me, into my solo K, trustee, whatever the hell the wording was. But instead of doing it to UBS, they made it out to USB. So
to a computer plug.
Oh wow.
So now I'm going through an absolute fiasco trying to get this check. I don't want to get it reissued because honestly, Sam and myself have been waiting for 6 months for these checks to arrive because we canceled our pension plan back in January. And so it's taken us 6 to 8 months just to get these checks. But because I was getting so many refinance solicitations, I almost tore that baby up.
Oh wow. That has to be common. Our buddy Carter has been talking about his USB check that should be coming soon too. And I'm like, USB check. So, it just rolls off the tongue like that. So
right.
you have to be getting a lot of USB checks.
Yeah, it actually should have been UBS. But see, the fact of the matter is, interest rates.
The United Buying Service. So I have that service as well. I don't have nearly as much as you do, but I'm just saying it's common for people to switch it and say USB instead of UBS. Carter has been saying it for a month at my house, waiting for his USB check.
Yeah. And so this whole thing arises from the fact that I cannot refinance my house. And I still continue to get all these solicitations. And the reason why I can't refinance my house isn't because I'm a deadbeat. It's because the tax returns are so complicated. Our business is so complicated that, I don't have an ordinary source of income, right? I don't really have a W-2. It's pretty much 1099s. And so anytime these banks get the tax return, they ask for more and more information. So at the end of the day, I just throw up my hands and say, okay, well, I'm not
These
going
Well,
to.
banks
you
are
know,
crazy anyway. Last year, I was ready to throw up my hands and not refinance. Remember that? And I
Yeah,
took it personally that this guy
yeah,
kept asking us for more and more information. And our stuff is not nearly as complicated as yours. Just,
right.
working, people with two incomes and, trying to refinance two properties. And they
Right.
were asking for things that weren't, why did you have a foreclosure? I was like, we've never foreclosed anything where it shows on your credit report. Can you explain why you didn't have that? I'm like, I didn't even have it. How am I going to explain why I didn't have it? I mean, just making up things,
Right,
that never
right,
happened.
right. And so, and you hit the nail on the head is that, and you can relate with your Mr. KC incident, is that you take it personally. And so you
Yes.
get unnecessarily aggravated, but really in the big picture of things, it doesn't really matter. None of this stuff really matters. And so we all get irritated. And, now I was irritated as hell, but now actually it's absolutely a funny joke. And I don't worry with it, but it's absolutely funny, but whatever.
well, it's your time is what's as you get older and older, as everybody does, your time becomes very valuable. But let me. This is an unsolicited plug I should put in. I don't know if you know Sean Johnson, and I can use his name because I'm going to compliment him highly. Sean is at Loan Depot now,
I know
and he's
Sean.
and he's a really good loan broker. And my stuff's not quite as complicated as yours, Charlie, but it's up there. And I've done a bunch of refinances through him because he's used to. He runs the whole department now, right? So he's used to that, unusual stuff, and he cuts to it. I mean, you got to send them all the K1s and all that stuff, but it was not bad at all. He's actually who I refinanced my primary house through. So you might want to consider Sean Johnson at Loan Depot. And now I got to call him up and tell him I want a
Okay.
advertising fee for the podcast. When you
Okay.
find it, it's funny because you don't, in the old days there were bankers, right? Now it's all these internet things, but he's a young guy, but he actually knows how to do it. And of course, it's some of it's a backlash from that 2007, all the liar loans, and so now the federal backstop makes them document stuff to a certain degree, and then they go a bit crazy.
Yeah, the pendulum is swung all the way over from no doc, low doc to,
Yeah.
everything
To
doc and
every
doc
doc.
doc your
No,
parents,
but
doc your kids, doc everyone.
no,
Yeah.
but Ed, you just hit the nail on the head with what people are thinking in this marketplace, right? So because the requirements to get these home loans is so stringent, and it's been stringent within the last 3 to 5 years, everybody thinks, oh, there's going to be this foreclosure avalanche. Once the foreclosure moratorium is up, there's going to be a foreclosure avalanche. Whereas in my belief, I think it's just opposite of that. I don't think there's going to be some foreclosure activity, but there's not going to be that much because anybody that could get a loan, they have been so stringent on these people getting loans that most of these people are pretty good borrowers and they have really good jobs. So I'm not so sure about this foreclosure avalanche that people are talking about. Matter of fact, I think it's just going to be the opposite. I don't think there's going to. I think
Which people are you talking, Charlie? The people who would be refinancing? You're thinking?
Yeah,
the
so I'm
No, we
talking
would
about,
get.
huh?
Well, I think what Charlie's saying is that the people who have outstanding loans right now were so documented that there should be a fairly good credit risk.
Yeah.
But I think on top, so I think that's true. Unlike 2007, where people overbought for their incomes, partly because they were solicited to, right?
Mhm.
Here, people in theory could afford the loans, but obviously you still have some people lose their job. You've got COVID job losses, but you would think there'd be less foreclosures because people could just sell their house.
Right.
I
That's the other
mean,
part.
because of the run up. So
Yeah.
even if you've been late for 6 months before COVID, and then you had some of the forbearance, or maybe you didn't even get that, in theory, although that's painful, the run up in equity in a lot of areas for a lot of houses should help. And if you got your job back after COVID, I would think you might be able to refinance, although I don't know how flexible they are to be like, well, you had a job loss during COVID.
Three months.
And so
they just want to see, all they want to see, like if you're in forbearance, they just want to see 3 months of payments and then they'll refinance you.
Really. I mean, it makes sense. Again, if there's, especially if you've got 30% equity in the property,
Yep. Yep.
but because of run-ups or just you had the loan for a while. So yeah, that's why I was going to ask you before you mentioned the foreclosure, if you've talked to any, I know you're always talking with bankers and brokers of distressed notes and all that. Have you heard much from your contacts about what they're thinking?
No, actually, I have. We did a lunch and learn with Weichert, some of the Weichert agents, and we were referred to them by the loan. Weichert Financial Services. They have their loan officer initials DM, and so DM referred us there, and we did a lunch and learn on X's and O's of hard money. And one of the conversations that we had with him was the number of people that are actually in a forbearance status is down to it's only 2 or 3%. So if there are 100% of the people that were in forbearance, he was saying that it's down to only 3% of those 100 are even in forbearance right now, and most of the people have exited out of their forbearance. And so I didn't really believe that number, and I still am not sure if I believe it. But even if he's wrong by 10%, and it's 13 or 15%, that's still a really, really low number. So,
right. Well, and for all the oldsters like us who remember 2007 and 2008, I mean, the government did approach it differently. In 2007, 2008, 2009, the bailout money kind of went directly to the banks. And so people who defaulted on their mortgages were hosed. The banks lost money on foreclosing on the mortgages, but they were sort of made whole by the cash that the Fed rained on them. This time, for better, worse, or indifferent, I mean, a lot of money has gone to individual homeowners and these forbearance programs and whatever. So maybe, I still find it hard to believe, this is sort of your point. I find it hard to believe that you can have a crater like we had with COVID and have it not be that bad. Now, of course, some people have been absolutely destroyed by the whole COVID financial situation, but a lot of people have at least gotten through it. And I hope that's the case, but I still maybe I'm Dr. Doom. I feel like another shoe's going to drop. Maybe it's the Delta virus. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, at least, I mean, obviously there's two sectors, right? The commercial and the residential. The shoe dropping on the commercial sector, I can't believe it hasn't happened yet in owners of office space, office buildings, owners of strip centers, strip malls. I know the one company filed a bankruptcy a month or two ago that owned a lot of shopping malls. That was expected, I guess, but there really hasn't been, the shoe hasn't dropped on the office space communities in any metro area of the country that I know of. And I attend a local MARIMA, it's called MARIMA, Mid-Atlantic Real Estate Marketing Association. And this is nothing but a collection of commercial agents. And none of these commercial agents are even clamoring about a fall in the commercial sector. So that's shocking, number one. The second thing that's absolutely shocking to me is in the residential space. You have a lot of onesies, twosies, homeowners who are renting out their properties, right? So you have some investors who own one or two or maybe three investment properties that they're renting out, right? So especially with the moratorium on evictions, I would have thought that I would have seen some softening in those kinds of folks that own one, two, or three rentals. And for the life of me, I haven't seen that either. So,
but speaking as one of those people, our renters have been paying. We have not had any issues with maybe it's the jobs that they have, their careers, they have not suffered and have not had any loss of income, at all. So the rental payments, keep coming. So, I mean, we haven't been hurt at all by it. Although one of our tenants is doing the Stay DC program. So they did take advantage of that program, which is a great program here in the DC metro area. But other than that, we haven't been impacted. Because, I mean, it would definitely kind of roll forward. I mean, if they don't pay me their, rent, I can't pay the mortgages. So it would have, but no, nothing.
Yeah.
But then, and presumably you might get a forbearance if that happened. And there's all these programs that didn't exist. So yeah, maybe it's all going to work out. But the other thing is, I think we're a bit insulated here in the greater DC area because there's so many government jobs and military jobs, which those obviously didn't go away at all.
Right.
So maybe that's some of
Teachers
it.
and
But
nurses are the people that I mainly have in those properties. So
true,
not impacted at all. So that's what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah,
right.
I mean, that makes sense. And even for us, we've been running at I don't know, 97.5 to 98, 99% of our tenants paying rent in our properties. And even a couple of them right now are starting to become slow payers. But even the ones that are becoming slow payers, Danica, who works with us, is very on top of things and getting them help with the various government agencies to help bring their backlog of rent current. And that's happened a couple times in some of our tenants. And so I think, that's starting to help. I mean, especially with the various government agencies, as long as you know where to go to help out your tenants as a landlord, I mean, that seems to be working too. I don't know how long this artificial lift up is going to be able to keep moving on, but I mean, we shall see. And so, yeah, we haven't had any downturn either. And so I guess I'm assuming the onesies, twosies, threesies who own rentals, maybe that's what's going on with them for the most part. That would make sense.
Well, you raise a good tip to pass on to our listenership is don't wait for a renter to go to these agencies. They may not have the experience or wherewithal or whatever. Go to your renters, and just like we talked about a long time ago, know your renters, talk to them, be friendly with them. How's it going? How are you getting through COVID, whatever?
Yep.
And encourage them to keep you up to date. And then if they say, gee, I lost my job or I'm getting half pay because our business is down, as a landlord, you might have a little bit better experience figuring out these programs because the money will, basically come to you as the landlord. So you're even more incentivized to find it. But
I think that's wonderful advice because, as a landlord, you have to be proactive instead of reactive, right? And so even for us, it's hard to kind of be proactive when your tenant is on time every month, right? We're proactive in maintenance kinds of things. But where the reactiveness comes in is that if a tenant is, I don't know, 10 to 15 days late, when they haven't been late for a period of time, then the proactiveness starts on our end and we reach out to them and say, what's going on. One particular tenant of ours that we helped get, agency funding for, they're now coming late again. They were late, back in March 2020 for like 4 or 5 months because of COVID. They were in the drywall business. The construction industry slowed up a little bit, but they refused to go to work because they were worried about their safety. So they were out of work for 4 or 5 months. So we got them agency help. And then just recently, with the Delta variant coming out, these same people are now in need of help as well. But because we helped them back then, they actually reached out to us to help them again. So that's kind of encouraging. If that makes sense.
Yeah, which is good. I'm sure there's similar programs in other states as well. So Virginia has programs, DC has programs. Not sure about Maryland, but
yeah, Maryland definitely has a program. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Because we're helping a tenant out in Maryland go through their various state agencies or county agencies to do that. So, and the other thing too is that even if you're in other areas of the country, a good thing, if you're a tenant and you're having a hard time paying rent, one of the things you might want to do is just reach out to a bunch of different nonprofits because some of this money is filtering through the nonprofits of the world. Anybody who's in affordable housing, there's various nonprofits in your area. Just go ahead and look them up and see if they can help you out. I honestly can't give you the names of these nonprofits because I'm not in your area, but that's a good place to reach out to the nonprofits because they'll at least know which government agency to go to in order to maybe get you help and you just get your applications filled out and whatever forms you need filled out and sent in.
Well, that's an even better idea, right? For the landlord should be proactive, and you can encourage your renters, and hopefully renters are aware of that. That you can type in your Google, browser rental. I need rental help near Washington D.C. You got to be careful what comes up with that, but you should be able to find as you say, some charitable or governmental agencies that are available to help with that, to try to prevent foreclosure. Some offer legal help in terms of a bad landlord, dealing with a bad landlord, but which doesn't involve us. But they know this process of how to do these forms, and that, you know, they're dealing with this every single day. It's their specialty, and they're thrilled if they can get a situation through government support that helps people keep somebody in the home. It's a win-win for the landlord and the tenant. And about that filtering thing, that relates to the foreclosure moratorium and everything else. It was the act that they passed, that Biden passed, the sort of final COVID relief package, and that sort of sent the money to the states for these rental assistance. But there's no like centralized call 1-800 federal rental help or something. And so every state is different, and the money goes through different housing agencies. Some of it, as Charlie said, goes out to charities. There's just no, and even some of that exchange within states. So unfortunately, it's probably not as easy as it might have been in terms of navigating it. You may satisfy whatever requirements, but if you can't get through the paperwork, it doesn't matter. You know, and you'd hate to see somebody foreclosed on or evicted who doesn't have to be. And of course, that's the Supreme Court seemed to say that the foreclosure moratorium, there's probably 5 votes in the Supreme Court to hold that unconstitutional. Justice Kavanaugh said, well, you know, it's going to end anyway, July 31, and we wouldn't want to stop it dead, give people some time to, so we'll just let it stay in effect. And then Congress or Biden or whatever extended it again. And so now lawsuits by landlord organizations are working their way up. People assume that the Supreme Court's going to strike it down, but they did it on a different basis. Do you remember what the deadline is now, Charlie?
I believe it's September 30th.
That sounds right to me. And certainly, I think Biden and the others said, I'm not going to extend it beyond that. Although, again, what happens with the Delta virus, right? I mean, by the end of September, things could be bad again.
Yeah, well, but think about it, right? Think about it. They're going to, my guess is they're going to extend it to December 31st. Because let's say it expires September 30th. You then file your unlawful detainers in court. It takes 6 weeks to process in a lot of jurisdictions. Now you're talking about kicking people out between Thanksgiving and Christmas. There is no way that they're going to want that to happen or allow that to happen. So my guess is they're going to just extend it to December 31st, see what the Delta does, and then go from there. That's my guess.
Right. No, it's a good point, and this is true for landlords to be aware of. You know, courts are made up of human beings, and a judge, you know, judges are not thrilled about evicting people.
Right.
But they'll, you know, most judges will do it, but you know, they can delay things. And if you file and you think you're going to get somebody kicked out right around Thanksgiving, it's probably not going to happen. A, you probably don't want to do it for a lot of different reasons. And B, the judge is going to find, the other side's going to find an excuse to delay things. I believe in DC now, they shut down actual sheriffs
Until
going out
next
around
year,
the holidays.
February.
Yeah, there you go.
When does that start? Is that in effect now, or is that coming at the holidays when they shut it down?
I don't know. One of my tenants was saying something about next February. She's the lawyer. So we can't do anything until February 2022. So
there you go. Yeah. So yeah, right. Because we talked about the federal eviction moratorium, but every jurisdiction has their own stuff. And there's in DC, there's cold weather issues. If it's below a certain temperature, I think there's some delay. I don't want to speak out of turn. Obviously, I don't know I haven't looked at the details, but you should. If you're a landlord or a tenant, you got to follow those details. And that shows, you know, of course, it's always better to work these things out if at all possible. But Charlie, you mentioned something. We need to do a show on this at some point. Is solo case? I don't think we've really talked about that. And they're very interesting. You see them pushed a lot in in real estate talks or whatever as a way to get funds in order to buy real estate, and it can be very good, but there's some tricks and traps and everything else. I have a solo K. I think you were mentioning you do, Charlie.
Is that like a self-directed IRA?
Yeah, he's talking about a solo K, which is the vehicle that the money's in, but then it's a self-directed, whether it's a self-directed IRA or a self-directed solo K, it is self-directed where you can tell them where you want the money to go.
Solo K.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know about you, Ed, but I've got within your setup, I've got reporting requirements on mine that I've got to file annually.
Yes, that's right. I
July
think
31st.
55, 85,
Yeah,
or so. There's some
55
something like that, but it's really not that hard.
Yeah, it's easy.
It depends on the custodian. There's a bunch of different custodians. So anyway, the short version is right that basically, and we should do a show on this, but the short version is that with some filing and some things you have to do, you can get the money, put it in a special bank account that's basically like you're the 401k, and you can go out and buy a property with that. You can even get something called a non-recourse loan, which I have on a property, and actually get a loan to help your solo K buy a property. So there's some, all this stuff I think was set up by wealthy real estate people to help real estate, and it can be good, but there's pitfalls. You can't, take the money and use it for groceries, and you can't use your solo K money to pay for your own house, for example. You can't be the lender to yourself or buy a property you're going to live in. So, but it is interesting. But
Seems like it's only for employers, though. I mean, like I have a self-directed IRA that has a custodian, and I can tell the custodian what to do with the funds, including, invest in real estate. But that's about as much management as I do with the self-directed. Seems like you guys may have more, control.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
I forget that. I'll look if we do the show, but there's different levels of it. Exactly. You can have a custodian who you direct them, hey, go invest in this, but they handle the paperwork, they handle a lot of the stuff. And there's some where it is basically totally self-handled. Like Charlie mentioned, you have to file this form every year about how much money is in it, but it's pretty simple, one-page form. And you can take the money, you can actually set up a corporation. So you could set up Charlie LLC, and that is the entity that gets the money, and you're the trustee of Charlie LLC, and you go out and buy a property with that, and the money comes out of Charlie LLC's bank account. So it's much more control than your sort of normal self-directed IRA, which is I call it sort of intermediate amount of control with those. Again, which can be good and bad. You can get yourself in trouble with any of these things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was good.
Yeah, I think that covers it for today. We're back from vacation. We'll try to get Sam, back up and running by next week. We've got a note to do a solo K program. I think people would be very interested in, and we'll hope that between now and airtime and the week after, the economy stays in one piece. So make sure to hit like and subscribe, and feel free to email us at basementtales.com if you have any questions.
Yep, it's yourstory at basementtales.com. So send us an email. We'll get your questions online. Any topics you want us to talk about, please feel free to do so. And thanks for listening.